And a lot of pollsters will group the strongly and somewhat supports together, just as they will group the strongly and somewhat oppose numbers together. And if you look at it that way, going from 74% support to 67% support isn't such a dramatic drop. But again, I just want to highlight the somewhat support. Now, it is worth noting this poll was taken about 2 weeks after the announcement last January of HHS's preliminary recommendation to lower the optimal level of fluoride in drinking water to 0.7 milligrams per liter or parts per million. So I would no doubt that may well have had some effect in shaping this. This is another reason why I think the tiptoe strategy is something we've got to move beyond. I think we've got to be proactive and get information to people. Basically, 80% of people have told us they don't feel very informed about this issue. And most pollsters will tell you that people are hesitant to describe themselves as not informed on an issue. So when you get, I would just conjecture that a good portion of that 54% who say they're somewhat informed probably really belong in the not at all informed category. And also, even some of the very informed probably don't know quite as much as they might think they know about this issue. So there is a real vacuum, and either we're going to fill that vacuum with information that's science-based or the antis will, and if they get there first in various states and communities, we're going to be in trouble. Each side has very distinct tactics, and while there's a lot of crazy, inaccurate, incredibly misleading, distorting information from the antis, I think we have to recognize that in terms of tactics, they are doing a lot of things right. They tend to speak more directly to the public, and a lot of that is really through websites. They also are better at using ordinary language to communicate, and they have a strong presence on the web. Our side is a very different story. We tend to communicate more to each other. We talk to each other through professional conferences, through listservs and other ways that don't really reach the public. We also tend to use clinical language. We tend to use caries a lot instead of decay. We use terms that build walls between ourselves and ordinary Americans, and we just have to be mindful of that. Obviously, if you're at a professional conference or an academic setting, it might be quite appropriate to use more technical language, but I think it's something we have to be aware of. And also, our relatively low profile on the web and in social media, I think, is an issue. So what does all this mean? What are the takeaways? Let me share with you what we've come to the conclusion of based on a detailed analysis of various polls and research we've done. And by the way, we did a lot of research in communities where this had recently been a hot issue, like San Diego, like Wichita, Kansas, like York, Pennsylvania, and Palm Beach County, Florida. So the best messages, the right messages, I apologize for some of the pagination of the slide there, is first to frame this up, it's about teeth. If we talk first about teeth and second about fluoride, we're much better off. If we start with fluoride and make that what this is all about, we're jumping the gun. So I think that's a key thing. I mentioned the clinical language that we use. I think we really need to move to kitchen table language. We need to make sure that we're communicating in ways that we draw attention and we say things that are actionable, that parents and children's groups and other stakeholders understand and are going to find compelling. While a lot of us use data, and PEW is an organization that is really all about data, we believe in a research basis. One of the things even we have to acknowledge, based on the research, is that the personal stories, the personal accounts are very powerful, and those have worked for the antis. Even if they're anecdotal, even if they can't be verified, when a woman stands up at a city council meeting and claims that she started feeling arthritic right after her community started fluoridating, whether it's accurate or not, it can have an impact. We also have learned that the organizations and the institutions that support fluoridation are highly credible. being able to point out that the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Dental Association and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention all support fluoridation as safe and effective is helpful. We shouldn't stop there. We shouldn't assume that's going to close the deal, but it is something we should rely on as just a basic piece of information we share. And then the last point on here is the term I use is inoculation. We want to get there before the antis do. And so if you sense that there's any rumblings in your community or state or a particular region, preparing policymakers for what they're going to hear from opponents, the standard stock arguments, if we can do that and give them quick responses, we gain a lot of credibility. This is partly about messengers as well as messages, and we really have to think of the full variety of messengers that we can look to. Dentists and pediatricians are highly credible, but we also know that teachers, nurses, civic leaders, business officials, other people in communities have high standing. To get them to weigh in on this and understand why this matters and to talk about it that way is very important. And finding an opportunity to get all your spokespersons on the same page and sharing talking points and sharing information, building a real coalition is so important on this. And again, you just want to think about there may be certain communities or audiences where the messenger you choose is going to be more important than the message. So in a nutshell, this is a winning message wheel for us. The extent to which we can talk about these issues, we are much more likely to be successful. Compare that to this message wheel. This is really what the antis are all about. They don't really, they don't want to do anything but try and create fear and create doubt. And in some cases, they're pretty good at doing it. So they want to talk about the laundry list of bad things that could happen or in their view do happen. And that list grows and grows. I don't think you could create a message wheel that would encompass all of the things that they've tried to blame fluoridation on, including violent crime, including women's difficulty losing body weight. I mean, the list just grows every week, it seems. But this is what we've got to be mindful of. Words matter. They really do. Every word we use. And I have heard stakeholders, I've heard people who support fluoridation use the term fluoride chemical. And I just cringe when I hear that because that was actually referred to in a focus group that we did. And so we have to think about this and hear those words the way that a mother of 2 kids under the age of 8 would hear them. How are they going to be perceived? And I just think it's very important. Is it technically a chemical? Well, sure. You know, orange juice you could break down and say orange juice is really made up of chemicals as well. But that term simply isn't heard the same way we may intend for it to be heard. And we think of chemicals, we think of something that's dangerous. And so we just have to think smarter and make sure we're using terms that aren't going to create fear or feed into the antis' tactics. In terms of targeting your message, we really have to think more about that. There are certain audiences where a particular message is going to resonate more than other audiences. I think that one of the things that's very important is for us to underscore that fluoridation benefits people of all ages and income levels. There's still an awful lot out there that if you read between the lines and you don't know this issue very well, you tend to come away with this assumption, oh, well, this is good for kids, but, you know, I'm over 50, so it's not really a big deal for me. We want everybody to understand, whether they are 17 or 77, they have a stake in this issue. And so that's just one example. You know, seniors need to realize there's something at stake for them in this. Our best messages we've found are starting right up front. It's about teeth. This protects teeth. We want everybody to keep their teeth and keep them as healthy as they can for as long as they can. And as I just mentioned, the fact that it benefits all ages and income groups. And in a time of recession, I think that can resonate even more. And then one of the things we've tested in recent polls, and it's again come back strong, is the fact that this saves money. particularly at a time when state and local budgets are severely strapped. We have to really emphasize this and point out that the evidence is on our side on this, because there are anti-fluoride activists that can get traction by telling a city council member, hey, you can actually cut money in the state budget if you do this. And we want to obviously demystify that and point out how incorrect that is. PEW has developed a messaging kit with a variety of materials that I'm happy to share with any or all of you. I could probably make these available through Chris Wood, the board of ASTDD, to the extent that they want to share these with you. But they are information that we have found talking with state and local advocates, interviewing them, understanding what they need, what they've found useful. We've developed these, and we're continuing to add to these materials. Some of these materials may well also be available in different forms on the ADA's website and CDC, but these are things we've tried to package together in a way that really answered a lot of questions people might have. So we've talked about messages, we've talked about messengers, and now I want to talk just briefly about timing. When should we talk about fluoridation? I'd like to say in a nutshell, the answer is all the time. We need to find times, opportunities to raise the issue of oral health in general, and then talk about fluoridation as one of the proven ways to prevent decay.